Hello, welcome back everyone to our day of art, music, and creative support for you guys, where we're sharing how you guys can use the arts to cope during times of crisis and how you guys can help patients and caregivers cope by using the arts during their times of crisis. Thank you so much to everyone who's already donated. We're already, I think let's see, we're still calculating some of the numbers. We're already over 2,700. Again, your donations today are getting matched dollar for dollar up to $12,500. So there's room for you when you give, $10 to give us an art kit for a patient, you're actually giving 2 art kits. When you give $25 to help us provide a personalized one-on-one creative experience for a patient, you're actually providing 2. So I just want to encourage those of you, thank those of you who've already given. If you haven't already, you can text GIVE to the number that's down here on our screen, 210-796-5188. There might also be a donate button here on Facebook. Those of you that are watching on Facebook, or you can go to our website, heartsneedart.org. I'm really excited about our next guest. She's amazing, and I love her so much. And it's Jenna Carrera. So Jenna, we've known each other 11 years.
In my life, 11 years. Okay.
I think that's when I first started volunteering. So Jenna was the oncology social worker at Methodist Hospital when I first started volunteering to sing for patients. And Jenna is a fellow AYA, or adolescent and young adult oncology survivor, and she has kind of made it her life's work to serve that population that's so vulnerable, those young adults that are dealing with cancer. And so when I started volunteering, Jenna and Nikki, the other social worker, when they found out I was a singer, they're like, will you please just sing for our patients? And then the rest is history. It's kind of grown from there. And Jenna has been a super valuable contributor in the design of our work, how we work with patients, how we come alongside people when they're suffering, and just the insight that you've given, Jenna, has been transformative and foundational to the work that we do. So welcome. I'm so glad you could join us. You're in Chicago now. Yes?
Yes.
Is it still cold? Is it getting warmer there yet?
It's getting warm. Still windy, but warm. Yeah.
Still windy, but warm. Okay. You haven't hit the triple digits like we have yet?
Not yet. No. Loving it.
Oh, well, I'm so glad. Well, so Jenna, you saw kind of the beginnings of Hearts Need Art, and we're kind of in those initial conversations about what this work and organization could look like. What was that like in just reflecting back? What comes to mind?
Well, it was very exciting. We had just lost our full-time music therapist, and we were grieving that. And then out of the heavens, we were dropped with Stanzi. And initially, I think, like you said, you had wanted to do something else as a volunteer, but I found out you sang, and I was like, no, we need music. We need music. So I watched you slowly go from singing and volunteering at the hospital to creating this foundation, bringing the creative arts to our patients to help them heal. And it was super exciting. And every new medium you brought in, I just wanted more.
Yeah, that's basically what we see all the time. Is as soon as you bring in a little bit, people are like, can you do this all the time, please? Like all day, every day, can we have this available? And yeah, that's that. In an ideal world, you would have nurses and doctors and artists working collaboratively. So yeah, that's very fond memories of those days. So you used music to cope when you were dealing with your cancer experience as a young adult. So can you talk a little bit about that? And do you still use the arts when you're dealing with times of pain and crisis in your life? And what is it you do? What connects with you?
Yes. It actually started when I was young. I wrote plays and short stories and poems and used dance and music. I loved music at an early age. I was the youngest child, so I would, listen to music of my older siblings. And then when I had cancer, I found that music was really a great way for me to make meaning out of what I was going through. It also provided me release, such as concerts, unless my blood counts were too low. Um, so, in my role with AYAs, I still use music, but in a different way. So, the chemo affected my ability to write. My concentration and my focus is not the same. So, I don't feel I can write in the same way as I did before. But I use music to separate. So the work I do can be traumatic. So I'm a witness to other people's trauma, to their sadness, to their grief. And I want to still maintain feeling empathy with them, but I also need to separate when I leave for the day. So, one of my primary methods for separating or creating a boundary between work and my home life is music. It's the first
Mm-hmm.
thing I do when I leave work. I also use it if I am grieving, there's a titer, people touch you and there's grief that comes along with it. And we always say we don't want to take it home, but we take it home. And so music is a way that I can honor or grieve for my patients. But it can also lighten my mood when I really need it most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Do you find working with adult patients that um, there are challenges or objections to overcome when talking about using the arts as a way to cope
With adults or young adults or just anyone?
with either?
Um, hmm, that's a good question. I really don't get much pushback on music, and in fact, the probably the opposite with my population of young adults. I used to see all ages, and now I see only young adults. And really, it was one of the main ways I could connect or engage my young adults who really didn't want to admit that they were going through this. They were having a hard time accepting it. But music was a way of getting at those emotions that were underneath the surface in an
Mhm.
acceptable way.
Yeah, that that people are generally really receptive to music as kind of
Absolutely.
a yeah. We found that too. So we know COVID hit Chicago really hard, and you're up there at Northwestern. What what challenges do you see your patients facing now? And why do you continue to advocate so hard to bring the arts to your patients? Like, why do you think this is so important, especially now?
So right now, I have seen an uptick in my patients who want regular counseling because the anxiety is sky high. They're dealing with isolation, boredom, lack of motivation, loneliness. And so I look at music and the arts as a way of helping them heal and cope with the journey. And so I want to connect them to that to help them um, decrease isolation by maybe connecting them with the musician or the artist, or help them express their feelings, or help motivate them, give them something to look forward to by setting
Mm,
that appointment with an individual artist.
mm. So now that we've switched to our virtual program, so when
Mm-hmm.
we left, we definitely mourned that loss of connection with you. And oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Technical difficulty. Okay, I'm back. Um, when we shifted all of our programs virtually, I reached out to you a while back and was like, "Hey, we can really help people wherever they are." And then you got really excited because a lot of the supportive services that are normally available aren't
Mm-hmm.
available now. Um,
Yes.
so you actually helped us and organized a group session and invited us to join you at one of your support groups for young adults. So how do you see this new platform expanding access and helping people during this time? And how was it having a creative experience in a group session?
It was wonderful. So when I moved to Chicago, I was used to having Hearts Need Art. And so I was grieving the loss of Hearts Need Art when I moved to Chicago. So when everything started going virtual, you were the first person I thought of. And then it was like ESP, and we talked to each other, and we were both thinking the same thing, like, why not be national? So I was super, super excited. Um, I look at it as I do comprehensive assessments with patients and families. And basically, I do prescriptions or recommendations for what I think will help them at that point. I meet them where they're at. And so for me, I look at the creative arts as no different as, okay, you need to exercise, you need to eat right. And here's Hearts Need Art that's going to help you with motivation, dealing with your anxiety and your depression and your boredom. And so I use it as a prescription, literally, as part of
That's
their
awesome.
regimen. Yeah.
And I love that ability to collaborate with the healthcare team, with the clinical staff, because we're not mental health care workers. You know, we're not digging up people's trauma and trying to process it with them or anything like that. But we know that the arts can be therapeutic, and we've seen some really, we've done some really great collaborations throughout the years. I can think of times when there's a patient that is obviously having a hard time but isn't wanting to talk about it, isn't wanting to receive chaplain services or social workers or talk with their nurse or anyone. Um, and then, like, you guys would send us in to do music, and it just kind of breaks people open in a way that I think helps them feel safer to express, and like, hey, someone really cares about my spirit. And the music can kind of cut through those barriers of vulnerability and shame or whatever might be keeping them quiet, and then help them feel a little bit safer to then finally accept the help that is being offered. Would you agree? Like, are there any stories
Well,
that?
that was my answer. So you just took that away. So
Oh,
we all put up barriers, is what I was going to say, and we have strong egos. And sometimes music is the only thing that I find, especially with this population, that will break down those barriers and get to the subconscious. Because we all have, I mean, anyone who's going through cancer treatment is going to have some level of anxiety or sadness or grief. And yes, they can move through it. But if we suppress it, it's going to come out eventually, some way, somewhere. So music is a way to get those feelings to the surface. And I always knew I could count on Hearts Need Art that if it did come to the surface and you saw something concerning, you would come straight to your mental health providers and let us know, hey, so and so is having a really hard time. So I think the collaboration was something I really appreciated about Hearts Need Art, and the training that you do and the thoughtfulness you have and the respect for boundaries. I think you excel at that.
thank you. Wow, I
You're
got
very
to I got to
welcome.
excels at boundaries compliment from a social worker. Yes. And I think that's something I had to learn, and that you really helped teach me, and that we've been able to pass on to our artists. Not just about scope of practice, but also boundary, like your own personal emotional boundaries. Like you said, like, it's such deep emotional taxing work some days. Our mortality rate is so high, and it's so easy to allow that sadness to attach to you and to kind of take on responsibility for it. Like, I'm the one that has to fix this. And then like, that doesn't help anyone. And then it just destroys you, and then you can't, and then you're not in a place to be able to serve. So, all of those, I remember a lot of talks that we had as I was first starting, when it was just me, and just working through all of those things and learning how to navigate that space. I'm pretty sure I cried for the first, I don't know, 8 months of
Yeah.
doing that work. And, I still cried. You don't ever like stop crying. I think that's a problem if it stops affecting you at all. That's a sign, right? of
That's right.
of burnout that you have to be aware of.
And the better
Um,
you are at self care, especially as a survivor with long term
mhm.
issues, the longer you can provide these services for patients and families.
Yep.
And
Yep.
prevent burnout.
Yep. Yeah. And so we teach our artists that too, about like self-care is part of, like, a big part of our work is supporting our artists. And because if they're in a bad place, you can't do this work in a bad place. Like, it's so energy driven. Like, you if you come into that space with your own baggage and heaviness, like, patients sense that and they'll just kick you out of the room. Like, they're not going to respond.
That's right.
So that emotional hygiene is important for us personally, and then also to be able to serve the work effectively. So that's a really good role. So you may have already answered little bits of this, but you work with people that are in crisis all the time, and our whole country is in crisis right now. What role do you see the arts playing for everyone? Why do all of our hearts need art?
Yeah. Art has always reflected what's going on in society and the world and helped us see and cope with the most difficult of situations in our lives. And I think of the magnitude right now of the losses of not only from COVID, police brutality, people are suffering, not only in their individual families, individual patients, but the whole nation. And so there's layers and layers of suffering going on right now, and we're all grieving. And what do we do when we grieve? The thing I think of is, again, music. So when we grieve, we honor those we've lost with music. We tap into songs from our culture, from our family, from our religion, to help honor them and make meaning of the suffering and the loss, or just helping us reflect on that person and memorializing them. But it also helps connect the whole, everybody who loved that person. And it helps bond us as well.
I love that. That's beautiful. Beautifully said, Jenna. Well, we're really excited about continuing to partner with you, and so excited that we now have this platform to partner with you, to help to continue to provide supportive services for the patients that you work with, even up there in Chicago. So for those of you that are watching, so the budgets, and if you have a comment on this, you can hop in, Jenna. From what I understand, hospitals have actually taken a big hit during COVID. Budgets for supportive services have been cut. There isn't as much funding at the institutional level for these types of programs. Patients don't have the funds to pay for these programs. So it requires people like you guys who see the need, who want to come alongside us as we come alongside people that are suffering, to provide these services regardless of a person's ability to pay. And that doesn't happen without it. We can't continue to do what we do without your help. A donation of $10 helps us to provide an art kit for a patient that's in a hospital. $25 helps us to provide a whole hour of creative support for a one-on-one session with a patient or caregiver. $75 allows us to do a group session like we did with Jenna and her team, for a whole group of people. So there's so many different ways that you can support. And we recognize that there are those of you that aren't in a position to give today. And we are so glad you're here. And we hope that you will enjoy this day of creative support. But if you are in a position to give, we just would really encourage you to search your heart. Like, if this work resonates with you, check out our website, see what we do, go to heartsneedart.org, or you can text the phone number down here, click the donate button on Facebook if you're watching. And we just really appreciate your support. And just one last thing, thank you so much, Jenna. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be in touch soon. So thank you for sharing your insights.
We need Hearts Need Art right now because we all are wounded, and we know with wounds they don't heal unless you meet them where they're at and you tend to them. And the creative arts is a beautiful way to do that. So we need you.
Thank you. And we hope you'll all join us at our community sing event tonight, 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time. It's on Zoom. You have to register in order to participate, you can go to heartseenart.org/create for a cause. There's no required registration fee, but if you are in a position to pay $10 to register, $5 of that goes to support the San Antonio Area Foundation, African American Community Fund, to support local nonprofits that are helping to address health disparities affecting people of color. So thank you so much for those of you who are already signed up. Can't wait to see you tonight. Jenna, you're amazing.
Thank you.
We'll talk later.
Okay. Bye.